Our next step is to create 4 grey buttons in a 2x2 grid. So there's the code. And you might be wondering how our row and column calculations work. Our first button needs to be in row 0, column 0. Our second button needs to be in row 0, column 1. Then we want row 1, column 0, and row 1, column 1. We can calculate these values rather than hard coding them. What I need to do is take my button number and divide it by 2. Of course, that does give us some remainders. And what our double divide in Python does is it just looks at the integer. So we end up with 0, 0, 1, 1. What the percentage sign does is it works out the remainder. And Excel has a similar function. And if I use that function, we can see that we do get the correct numbers. So the short version is, this is going to give us the integer that's left when we divide by 2. This is going to give us the remainder. And it turns out those are the values we want for our row and column. On our plan, we need 2 frames for the buttons at the bottom. We need our color frame. And for our hints and stats button, we need a hints and stats frame. Outside the loop where you created the buttons for the colors, you'll want to make a hint stats frame, and that goes in row 6. Then we can create a list for our buttons that's going to include the frame, the text, the background color, the command, the width of the button, the row, and the column. Then, as always, we can go ahead and iterate through the list and create the buttons, putting them into a reference list. And there's what my GUI now looks like. If I edit my end game width, it looks a lot better. If you used my code when you push the end button, it should work correctly. This means we can go ahead and get the color names and scores to populate our buttons. Please check in your project folder and make sure that you've downloaded the color list CSV from the support files area. This needs to be in the same folder as the rest of your color quest code. To begin, create a file called Get All Colors. At the top, please import the CSV and random libraries. And you can then use some code to open up the file so that we can read it. Take the colors in the file and make them into a list, and then close the file. Then you'll want to print all the colors, and when you run the code, you can see that we've got the header row, and then we've got miniature lists of colors which have a color name, a score value, and then the foreground color, which is either going to be black or white. We can remove the first row, which we don't need, by using .pop. We can confirm this worked by running the code and noting that that header row is no longer appearing. And this is a huge win because we can go ahead and provide testing evidence showing that we can extract the colors and the scores from our CSV. The next thing we want to do is randomly choose 4 colors, get their associated scores, and work out the score to beat, which is going to be the median score. We want to make sure that we don't have any duplicate scores. And of course, I've done this off camera. And I did need to do some trialing because initially when I retrieved the scores, they were strings and they needed to be integers. And I'm going to show you an efficient way to change those scores into integers so that we can work out the median. As this video is getting a little bit long, we're going to do that in the next video.